that we need to inbuild a standard operating procedure where we have something known as an instant response retaliatory mechanism, IRRM, which gives full leeway to the Indian Armed Forces to respond within 24 hours so that the impact is tremendous, it is immediate, and it is well known that we will not wait. So, to that extent, this fortnight wait has been worth it. So, we have given a message that if your hideouts or if your terrorist camps are restricted only to the across the line of control, we do not wish to wage a war against Pakistan as a country. We definitely will wish to wage a war against those who perpetrate terrorism. So our targets are only terrorist hideouts and to wipe out terrorism totally. We are not here to wipe out another human race or another country, not at all. The Pahalgam being avenged is a temporary, means. It has been avenged, which is a short-term temporary achievement. Our aim is to firstly knock out the terrorism. And as far as China is concerned, we cannot take them, just very easily. Though they also know that India is no longer what it was. I think we've given them a fitting response at Galwan 5 years ago, and they also have known that we cannot be pushed over like in 1962. And also India.
Brigadier Apte, which means that it's very clear that India, after this operation, Sindur cannot descend into any kind of complacency, and they will have to be on an extra alert.
Absolutely, India cannot be complacent.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. It took just 25 minutes for India to unleash 24 missiles that struck 9 terror camps and killed many terrorists in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The strikes, which lasted from 1:05 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. on May 7th, were carried out jointly by the Indian Army and the Air Force under the code name Operation Sindur. At a press briefing, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, flanked by Colonel Sophia Qureshi and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh, said that the operation was a measured and proportionate response to the April 22nd terror attack in Pahalgam, and that assault, attributed to Pakistan based terror groups, claimed the lives of 26 people, including one Nepali national, and left many others injured. Now, what Colonel Qureshi said was that the operation marked a shift in strategy. And she exactly said, and I'm going to quote that: for the last 3 decades, Pakistan has been constructing terror infrastructure, including recruitment centers, training areas, and launch pads across the POJK and Pakistan. This operation was intended to dismantle those facilities and prevent future attacks. And Foreign Secretary also said that our intelligence indicated that further attacks against India are impending, and thus compulsion both to deter and prevent. And hence, earlier this morning, India exercised its right to respond to deter such more cross-border terrorism. And our actions are measured and non-escalatory, proportionate, and responsible. This is what he had to say. So, how was this Operation Sindoor strike different from the ones which we have seen, say, for example, the Uri strike in 2016, or for that matter, the Balakot strike in 2019? What has been the most outstanding factor as far as the technicalities and the operationality of this entire operation is concerned? And also, what next for India and Pakistan post this Operation Sindoor? Joining me now this evening is a very special guest who has been a 1971 war veteran, Brigadier Ajit Apte joins us this evening. And thank you, sir, so much for joining. And it's really wonderful to have you on the program on HW. Just telling the viewers about Brigadier Ajit Apte that he's from the Artillery 1971 war veteran, East Front Jessore, Khulna sector, the liberation of Bangladesh. He has also served in the line of control in Rajouri Pooch sector in 1977. He served in the counter-insurgency environment in the Northeast, and he has also commanded an artillery regiment on the India-Pakistan border in the Ran of Kutch in 1993. And Brigadier Apte has also commanded an artillery brigade in 1999 with its operational role on the Western Front. Thank you, sir, so much for joining on Truth Be Told on HW News. And my first question to you, sir, is that I'll begin with the sheer scale of this Operation Sindur. And when you compare it with the earlier strikes which have taken place, how do you find this operation different?
Thank you, Neelu, for inviting me. Uh, as we all know that Operation Sindur launched on night Tuesday 6th and early morning Wednesday 7th May 2025 was an excellent response to the massacre or genocide which was carried out by terrorists, definitely aided by Pakistan, that there's no doubt. And they slaughtered the men with the poor women lying there looking helplessly at their husbands being demolished. Very sad and sorry that there was a young girl, a new bride of just 4 days. Her husband, a naval officer, was massacred. There had to be a response, and I must give full credit to our Honorable Prime Minister, who came back hurriedly from his foreign visit and took exactly a fortnight to plan a measured, calibrated response. In fact, I'll also go a step further to say that we need to inbuild a standard operating procedure where we have something known as an instant response retaliatory mechanism, IRRM, which gives full leeway to the Indian Armed Forces to respond within 24 hours so that the impact is tremendous, it is immediate, and it is well known that we will not wait. So, to that extent, this fortnight wait has been worth it. It was a very well calculated response, and India has taken the due appropriate measures, also keeping in view what could be a possible retaliatory strike from Pakistan. In that, these two young ladies, one from the Indian Air Force and one from the Indian Army, have given an excellent example of integration of the Indian Armed Forces. Ideal would have been to also have had a naval officer lady, but I think even an Army and Air Force lady giving this reply is absolutely befitting, and they have given a
What do you think, Brigadier Apte, is the symbolism behind putting these two women, Colonel Sophia Qureshi of the Indian Army and Wing Commander Vyomika Singh of the Indian Air Force? What kind of a message has the Modi government or the armed forces today sent out? And has it also happened for the first time in the Indian history?
yes, it's happened for the first time. The message is very clear because civilian targets, especially the ladies, were left at Pahalgam and the men folk had been demolished. So these two ladies, if you even look at the code name of the operation Sindur, it is to avenge what damage was done to our young ladies, married ladies, and therefore these two officers in uniform, the lady officers, have been chosen correctly to tell Pakistan that look, what you did has been now avenged. And the avenge has been through these two Indian Army officers and Air Force officer. Therefore, it's a correct response. As far as, yes, it has happened for the first time. In the earlier times, we've never had two lady officers of the Indian Armed Forces giving such a message. So, from that perspective, definitely the first time. its scale, magnitude, the width and depth of the canvas of the attack is totally different from what happened in 2016, what happened in 2019. This is 2025. So it's given a different perspective altogether.
Right. But Brigadier Apte, if you talk about the sheer scale of the militant loss in terms of the fact that it has sent out a strong message to the terrorist networks, is India now in a position, or the Indian armed forces or the Indian government, are they in a position to say that now with this kind of a precision strike being mounted on Pakistan, now no location is beyond India's reach? Have we been able to send out this message?
Yes, we have. In fact, if you look at the kind of weapons, the ammunition, and the delivery mechanism that has been used, the press has not quantified or not given the qualitative difference between the weapon systems used. I'm an artilleryman, so I know what kind of missiles we have, but I'll not spell it out here for security reasons. We also know what missiles we have, which can fire up to what range, whether it's 150 kilometers, 200, 800. I will not spell that out. But we've also got the Air Force, who have got the kind of standoff weapon delivery aircraft who can deliver. So if you look at the depth of the targets, there are some close by and there are some in depth. So that is one point to note. The width of the targets, in fact, Sialkot has been hit, which may be just across the international border. There are other targets which have been hit across the line of control. So we have given a message that if your hideouts or if your terrorist camps are restricted only to the across the line of control. I've served on the line of control in 77 as part of an active infantry division, and I know we've carried out analysis of this way back in 1977. So all the locations which have been mentioned, I am quite familiar with that. But we have given this strong message that we have the capability, we have the resources, we have the capacity, and we will not hesitate to strike, even if it be across the international border, if you continue to harbor terrorist bases there. The other message, which is very clear, is we do not wish to wage a war against Pakistan as a country. We definitely will wish to wage a war against those who perpetrate terrorism. So our targets are only terrorist hideouts and to wipe out terrorism totally. We are not here to wipe out another human race or another country, not at all. India is a peace-loving country. Yeah.
Brigadier Apte, there is no doubt that there has been a very careful and a meticulous planning behind this Operation Sindur. But given the specifics of the operation which are coming out, and according to government sources, it's the Indian intelligence combined satellite imagery, then there have been human sources, then the intercepted communications to establish the use of specific compounds by groups. And details to the extent that how buildings have been identified as indoctrination centers, then arms depots, logistical hubs, sleeper cells, and the kind of details which we are seeing coming out from the operation are these kind of details which have come out in the public domain for the first time ever. And maybe it's because of the technological advancements, because of the meticulous planning. So whom would you give the credit? Of course, the huge credit goes to the armed forces, but also is it because of the existence of the advanced technology?
What happens is, before the armed forces select their targets, before they select their methodology of response or attack, intelligence information is very, very important. And it has to come from different domains. It has to come from different quarters. We have our own intelligence bases in the armed forces, whether it's from the Indian Army, the Navy, or the Air Force. We also have information coming in from various sources that are developed or cultured across the line of control or across the international border during the no war, no peace times. There are also reports which come in from different kinds of pictures which we build up. Satellite imagery, very, very important. So all these puzzles or jigsaw puzzles as we call them, they are collated, they are collected, they are converted from raw information into intelligence, which is then correctly utilized by the people who need to know. So the intelligence that is collated, that is collected, is given to the respective units, whether it's the Air Force, whether it's the Army, or whether it's the Navy. And then we develop our target planning structure, how to engage these targets, and that is how these very points which you mentioned, hideouts, sleeper cells, it is there's a combination of human intelligence also. So it is electronic intelligence, human intelligence, radars, surveillance mechanisms, surveillance devices. There are patrols. There are cross-border people who cross. There are lots of civilians also who are tourists, and you can give a lot of valuable information when they cross the border during peacetime. So the Indian Armed Forces, our diplomats, our various raw agencies, they all collate this information, they collect it, and then they give it to the correct agency. And that is then applied to our weapon systems, to our people who are designated to select these targets and then strike them. So this is what happens.
Yeah, Brigadier Apte, but do you see this as because what we are getting to know, from sources, though the government hasn't disclosed it yet, and I don't know how appropriate will it be, but the kind of deployment which they have done of air, naval, and land-based assets, and the kind of I mean, the operation utilized air-launched scalp cruise missiles, hammer precision guided bombs, loitering munitions. Do you see this as some kind of a departure, from the prior doctrine which the government or the armed forces have adopted? Do you see this as a departure from the prior doctrine? And does it mark a new level of strategic assertiveness?
Yes, it does. In fact, if you compare like what we had in 1971, which is 54 years ago, and then if you take it down the decades, the 80s, the 90s, the new millennium, there has been a quantum jump, there's a quantum leap in technology, digitization, gaining of information, GPS systems, new delivery platforms, new weapon systems, their lethality, everything has changed. So the manner in which we seek and acquire targets, in which we carry out reconnaissance, either through radar means or through satellite imagery, all that has given a new dynamism, a new complexion to the entire game of warfare. Electronic warfare, cyber warfare, all these are new dimensions which have penetrated into the armed forces systems, UAVs, drones, all these. And even in the UAVs and drones, there are different generations of these systems. So they have been effectively inducted into our armed forces, be it the Army, Navy, the Air Force, different missile systems. So India has definitely upgraded its scale and magnitude of warfare. And I must compliment our current generation of officers and men and our Defense Ministry, Ministry of Defense, our politicians, our diplomats who have realized, have visualized what India needs in the decades to come, right up to 2047 when we complete 100 years of our independence. So it's a graduated mechanism, what we need to acquire, how to acquire, when to acquire, and how to give that kind of deterrence which is required to our adversaries. Because remember one thing, the adversaries can change. I don't have to spell it out. The very people whom we liberated 54 years ago have given a different dimension now. So there are situations where the horizons will change. We have an immediate perceivable horizon, and we have a horizon which we cannot see immediately, but we have to analyze that, imagine that, and do a little bit of crystal glazing. So we need to upgrade our mechanisms, our defense systems, our equipment, our ammunition, and our surveillance devices, and the kinds of ammunition which you have mentioned, loitering ammunition, whether, how do we need to scale up our nuclear, deterrent capability. We don't want to use it. We are a peace-loving country, but the other countries must know that they're dealing with a country which has got a nuclear option, but we are sensible people. We are not irrational. We are not impulsive. And therefore, this message must go loud and clear. And I think our Prime Minister is absolutely on the right track. The mannerism which he has displayed, his body language, and his calmness and coolness, which is actually a picture of authority to the whole world.
Right. But, now I want to talk about the challenges. Now, there is a certain jingoism which always is attached to operations like these, where the entire country comes together. There is a feeling of patriotism which gets cultivated automatically. And then it's, politically also used. But I'm not coming to the politics now. But what I want to talk to you about is that now Pahalgam has been avenged. It's a foregone conclusion. They've avenged for Pahalgam, but what are the challenges now before the Indian government and before the armed forces?
See, Pahalgam being avenged is a temporary, means. It has been avenged, which is a short-term temporary achievement. Our aim is to firstly knock out the terrorism, which is coming from cross-border. That is number one. Secondly, our challenge is to be always prepared for taking on any contingency, be it from Pakistan, be it from China, be it from Bangladesh, be it from any other neighbor who is likely to change his attitude towards our country. If you go back to the Second World War, Britain, Germany, France, entire Europe, when the Soviet Union stepped in, the Americans stepped in, the whole complexion changed after 6 June 1944, when the Allied invasion was launched at Normandy to free Europe from Hitler's tyranny. When the Soviets came in, then the Cold War started. Then you had Korea, you had Vietnam, then you had so much of trouble in the Middle East, West Asia. We've had conflicts 47, 48, 61, 62, 65, 71, 99, and ever since the liberation of Bangladesh in 71, after the similar agreement which today Pakistan has nullified, there has been this threat of proxy war. That is not an overt war because Pakistan doesn't have the capability, but launching these terrorist strikes and hitting us across the border in the area of Kashmir. You saw what happened in 89, 90 when the Kashmiris were ousted from their own land. And today they've become, they've come to the mainland. 370 has gone. So many things have been done. But our challenges are, can we have a one-time solution? Can those people who were evicted from Kashmir go back happily to their places? Can we resolve this issue? Can we live happily as neighbors and achieve economic progress for our population? That is the main thing. I mean, look at the poverty lines in India and Pakistan and in our subcontinent. If that can be improved, that is our biggest challenge: economic progress.
So what you have very clearly said, Brigadier Apte, is that Pahalgam avenged is a very temporary phenomena. One can feel happy about the fact that, okay, there can be some sense of closure, but this definitely is not a permanent solution.
Permanent solution because the trouble across the line of control, what we say is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and they say is Indian administered Kashmir, or what they call is POK, they call it as Azad Kashmir. So you see, there are different connotations, there are different interpretations. Also, we need to realize that China is Pakistan's all-weather friend, whether we like it or not. We've had our differences with China, which are long outdated. I don't wish to elaborate too much, except that 1962 was a bad phase for us, and
So,
China
Brigadier
got.
Apte, are you saying that in the coming weeks or in the coming months, Pakistan, along with China, can mount a big trouble for India?
I'm not saying that they can mount it immediately, Strategically, yes, China is, as I told you, an all-weather friend of Pakistan. They will always support it, and they may support Pakistan covertly, if not overtly, because there are lots of plans and lots of infrastructure projects in Pakistan which are being developed by China for their own benefit. So it can happen that China is not too happy, and they have mentioned that they will support Pakistan in whatever India does against them. Similarly, there are other Arab states also who are exercising strategic autonomy right now. They are not against us, but they are not openly saying that they are not favoring Pakistan. So it's a Chinese checker game, and as far as China is concerned, we cannot take them, just very easily. Though they also know that India is no longer what it was. I think we've given them a fitting response at Galwan 5 years ago, and they also have known that we cannot be pushed over like in 1962. And
Oh,
also
so
India.
Brigadier Apte, which means that it's very clear that India, after this operation Sindoor, cannot descend into any kind of complacency, and they will have to be on an extra alert.
Absolutely, India cannot be complacent. We have to build a strong deterrence against anyone. We are a rising economy. We are a rising potential so called superpower. We know China is a big, uh, a big rival to us in this region, and we know that we cannot be off guard. It's like a boxer. There's a heavyweight boxer, and there's another guy who's not that good, but it can happen that a weaker boxer can deliver the knockout punch anytime if the actual heavyweight boxer is taken off guard. So we don't want that to happen. We
No,
have
but
to build.
Brigadier Apte, one question which I really want to ask you very candidly and honestly is the fact that when the first all-party meeting happened, the government did acknowledge that there was some kind of a shortcoming from its ends, and there was some kind of letdown as far as the intelligence was concerned. There was a security lapse. They did admit to that fact. So now that the operation has been done successfully, shouldn't there be some kind of an accountability? Uh, that has to be taken at the political level, but should be some accountability set in as far as the armed forces are concerned. Shouldn't there be some kind of accountability as far as the political layers of the are concerned?
Well, you see, that blame game started immediately after Pahalgam, and they did bring out that there was a security lapse at the state level. You see, the armed forces cannot be guarding everywhere inside. We are doing our needful on the line of control. We are doing our needful at the correct positions. And the armed forces cannot guard every inch to deny infiltration. If there are local supporters, which there's no doubt there were in the Pahalgam incident, they have definitely been harbored by people there. So there is
No,
a
but what
security.
is the right approach according to you? I mean, the enforcement agencies were not informed, and the area of Pahalgam was open to the tour operators, which means that the call was taken at the political level. So, a successful operation Sindoor, does it mean that we forget all the lapses? Does it mean that we forget the intelligence failure? Should we assume that there should be no accountability held? And that's my last question to you. Yes.
No, definitely, Sindur includes how to sanitize our current areas of tourism like Kashmir, like Srinagar, Pahalgam. After all, that is their basic livelihood. How can we promote more people to gain that confidence? So, definitely, security measures, the correct, proportionate deployment, employment of forces, the surveillance, all that is required. And I'm sure that the government will take necessary steps in their own manner at the state level, at the union territory level, at the central level to build up that credible deterrence by building up their security forces, deploying them, and then giving that assurance to the rest of the country, that look, everything will be all right. It may take some time, but we are on the right track. 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 We are on the right track but people can definitely want to go back. So Sindur will not finish with one strike. Sindur continues because we don't know what is Pakistan's likely response. But definitely it will encompass a larger, perspective, a larger canvas. It has to be developed correctly, and all agencies of the country, whether it's the ruling party or the opposition, they must realize that we are one nation and we need to be together to build up that credibility, to build up that confidence amongst our citizens. Our armed forces are always there, and I know, having served in the army for nearly 36 years, fought the 71 war, serving on the line of control and in the counterinsurgency areas, I am absolutely confident that today's generation of officers and men will always rise to the occasion whenever India requires. Even we veterans, we are ready here. If the nation requires us, all of us unhesitatingly, unflinchingly will say that we are ready to come back. We wear the uniform and serve the nation once again, irrespective of our age and whatever we may have. We are ready here because we are here, service before self.
So challenges are not over, and Operation Sindoor may have got over. And India really has no space to get complacent because you never know when Pakistan will strike back again. But yes, certainly there is a sense of closure as far as the Pahalgam attack is concerned. But I think from here on, there are many more challenges which need to be addressed. Thank you so much. It was wonderful talking to you, Brigadier Ajit Apte. Thank you so much for joining on HW. Thank you.
Thank you, Neelu. Very kind of you. Thank you very much.